So, I know I'm a young upstart who's filming in a bedroom, but hear me out. So, does anyone remember that 2015 box office flop of a movie that was spinning a new origin on the tale of Peter Pan? Because that's what I'm going to be talking about today. Because it seems like, unlike 73% of the world, I actually really enjoyed this film and was really sad when the sequel that they had planned for it was getting scrapped. It's understandable. I mean, every company wants to make money and Pan just wasn't doing that. It actually lost them around $20 million. But I still think this movie is very sequel-worthy and deserves a second chance. I am the Flighty Fairy. I flit from one fandom to another, and today I won't be so much talking about a fandom, but about a very well-known story. Here's a refresher. Peter Pan, I'd say, is right up there with Hans Christian Andersen's works as far as heavily adapted fairy tale-like books. Even though it's weird, I'm not even sure how many people know it's a book. It's really good, you should read it. But, as everyone knows, since its release, a ton of more famous adaptations have come out, each taking a different spin until barely anything of the original story remains that people remember. Namely, there was a boy who never grew up because he lived in a place called Neverland. He had a fairy sidekick, he could fly, and was the sworn enemy of Captain Hook. Pan takes all these elements and mixes them around, toying with our expectations to create something new that I personally really enjoyed. Probably because Peter Pan has been adapted so many times, it doesn't really seem like a personal insult to the text anymore. In this movie, Peter grows up to the age of 12 in our world before being abducted to Neverland. He and Hook are best friends by the end of the movie, and the big bad pirate is not Captain James, but Blackbeard. Played by Hugh Jackman, by the way. It's kind of hard to recognize him under all the makeup, but can I just say that he alone makes the movie worth it? Sorry, if you're watching this, Hugh Jackman. Anyway, in the way this film was written, it is very easy to see that there was always intended to be a sequel, especially in the last line of the film. Peter says, "We'll always be friends, won't we, Hook?" To which he replies, "Of course, what could possibly go wrong?" We also still end quite a bit of time before the main plot of Peter Pan, and a lot still needs to be set up if this is really supposed to be a prequel. Not to mention that the actors in this movie did sign a contract for a multi-movie franchise. I believe I already explained why this never happened, but I still think it would be fun to speculate on what would have happened if it had. The first and most obvious thing is that Peter and Hook would have a falling out. The end of the movie is practically begging for something terrible to happen to their relationship, and we all know what happened in the J.M. Barrie story. According to Garrett Hedlund, the actor who played James Hook, the sequel would have probably focused more on his character and how he became a pirate. Perhaps Hook would be trying to figure out what to do with his life and start going down the Primrose Path, with Peter and Tiger Lily disagreeing with how he's doing things, and then everyone separates. Exactly what he could be doing that's so bad, though, leads me to prediction number 2. According to the folklore of J.M. Barrie's Captain Hook, that particular pirate got everything he knew from Blackbeard, who was the main pirate before him. This is actually why the creators decided to make Blackbeard the main antagonist to begin with. But if Hook is learning from Blackbeard, does that mean that Blackbeard is still alive? It would explain why Hook is said to be Blackbeard's boatswain, even though he was never seen serving on a ship with him in the movie. On the other hand, the creators of the movie have already changed J.M. Barrie canon quite a bit, so I'm not sure how heavily that can be relied upon. I'm also a little skeptical because it was one of those Disney-esque villain falls into an immeasurable void and dies, but you don't actually see them die moments. To compare, think Gaston from Beauty and the Beast, the Evil Queen from Snow White, or Frollo from The Hunchback of Notre Dame. And those deaths are always very tricksy because the main character is never actually seen dead, it's just heavily implied. I just personally never really give these theories much weight because what do people expect the directors to do in the PG-rated kids film? Show the main character poking at the villain's corpse and saying, "Yep, he's dead." On the other hand, in this case, it did seem that the boat that Blackbeard was on fell into a river, so it is possible that he survived the fall. I should probably give a warning that the rest of this video is going to contain some serious speculation. Say Hook, Peter, and Tiger Lily start spending a lot of time in the Fairy Kingdom because, Peter is a prince there, and Hook stumbles across the mortally injured and quickly aging Blackbeard. Blackbeard, as we know, is a very good talker, and he convinces Hook that there's more to him than being a sidekick for a 12-year-old boy, and he needs to go fulfill his full potential. Hook's like, nah. And then he's like, Blackbeard maybe gives him something valuable that Hook can't refuse to start him off on his life of crime. And then dies. Because if that fall didn't kill him instantly, it certainly would eventually. Maybe all this happened, or maybe Blackbeard actually did die and Hook is just kind of remembering what he did in an attempt to put his life back together. Either way, he's influenced. Peter and Tiger Lily notice this change in attitude and there's a confrontation, where Hook gets very defensive and goes to seek his fortune elsewhere. This is where him and Tiger Lily ends. The other two decide that it is their duty as friends to get him back, and it is this friendship struggle that is the main plot of the sequel. My third prediction is that Tinkerbell would get a bigger role, because I don't know about you guys, but I was very disappointed when we only got like 15 seconds of her in the first film. I know they only put her in the trailer for marketing purposes, but seriously, how hard would it have been to fit her in there for longer? Unless they had been planning to do more with her in the sequel. So after Hook leaves, Peter decides that it is time to leave the fairy kingdom with his lost boys, being the orphans that he picked up in the first movie, and go find a more permanent home for themselves. This is all well and good, except for one fairy refuses to leave his side, the one who we met at the very beginning, Tinkerbell. They become best buds. Meanwhile, James Hook is having a dandy old time reuniting with the remainder of the pirates that survived the Flight of the Fairies. The Flighty Fairies. He convinces them that he wants to be one of them and maybe even shows them the priceless artifact that Blackbeard left him, assuming that scene took place. The pirates aren't too convinced, especially considering that this is the guy who thwarted their plans not too long ago, so they decide to stage a little initiation. Hook's first task is to prove his loyalty by finding and destroying the Chosen One, Peter Pan. Unbeknownst that pirates are planning his death, Peter's busy trying to control his lost boys. Because we all know how troublesome they can be. Or was that just Peter and Nibs? Anyway, I'm sure some of them will form a Nirvana flash mob at some point or another. This would probably be the comic subplot of the movie before Hook and Smee. Did I forget to mention Smee? He was like the best in the first movie. Anyway, prediction number 4, he was a pirate or something similar in the first movie, so I'm pretty sure he would be in league with the pirates after Blackbeard's gone. Probably Hook would find him as they were both trying to gain access to the remaining rascals, and they would team up to go on this mission to destroy Peter. Thus begins once more the long and complicated relationship of Hook and Smee. I'm pretty sure most of this movie would be Hook getting to the point where he can find and destroy Peter, emotionally and geographically. He and Smee probably have a lot of misadventures along the way, which are slowly starting to make Hook more sullen and more against his former friend. One of these might, I don't know, involve a crocodile and a ticking clock. Because I was really surprised that Hook made it out of Pan with both hands, especially because there was a crocodile scene. I suppose it didn't really fit into the rest of the story, and he didn't really have time to go off and get a hook hand, but I'm pretty sure it would be in the sequel. So Tiger Lily sees Peter as forming his own society, separated from the fairies and the natives, and she decides to leave him to his own devices. Well, not leave him, just try to not get him to be the almighty savior of her tribe anymore. This occurs before the much more corrupt and mono-handed James shows up at the hideout and steals Tinkerbell. Or maybe someone else, I don't know, someone who Peter has grown to care about. Peter and the gang of good guys rush to the scene where they find that the whole thing was a trap to lure them there, and Hook will release the fairy if Peter promises to go with him and prove that he has been overpowered. Then, despite the previous friendship, Peter has an I will never bow to you moment where Tiger Lily is like, I don't even know you anymore, and there's a battle where Hook and Smee miraculously escape. While they are making their exodus, Hook comes to believe that those who he thought were his friends are now his enemies, and that he is on his own now. Peter secures his hideaway in a new place that is hidden, hollow, and under a tree. He and Tiger Lily keep up a working relationship, and the clan of Lost Boys plus Tinkerbell solemnly prepare for their next encounter with the man who calls himself Captain Hook. So I hope you enjoyed this different sort of video. I haven't really done anything this speculative before, so leave a like if you like seeing the inner workings of my imagination. And if you like this channel, please subscribe. And tell me if you want to see this kind of fan fiction-like head canon theory sort of thing ever again. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in another video. Later, sequel fans.